I tell people all the time, it's not if, it's when. So it's that one call that happened and just blew up my brain. And instead of getting help, I was just prideful about it and thought, I'll get through this. I ended up losing my career, sitting in the same jail cell that I put people in. I was planning my suicide on duty. I was going to run my patrol car into a wall coming down the highway. And so you would think, if I told my whole story, there's a lot of rock bottoms, and you would think any of those would have snapped me out of things, but we all have our journey for a reason. Planning my suicide, almost doing it, coming to, none of that prompted me like, hey, you need some help. It was just in my mind, I got this, and if nobody finds out, we're good. It was rough to lose my career, but it ultimately saved my life. I do believe that.
Champion. Anybody winning, you a champion. Champion. Everybody winning, you a champion.
The biggest struggle with that was the alcoholism. I went to the hospital detoxing, and it wasn't anything new. I'd been there 20 to 25 times in the last few years, detoxing to the ER, the urgent care. I just knew something wasn't right, and they ended up admitting me. And the third night I was there, my heart stopped beating. I woke up to my charge nurse over me, and then the room was just flooded with nurses and doctors. And my feet were shaking uncontrollably because they had for about 3 days straight just from detoxing. And I just remember looking at my feet and telling myself, like, I was built for greatness. I'm not going to go out like this. Where God was in the room with me. I just remember him being in the corner, and it was the most gentle, loving, and caring voice that I've ever heard. And it was like talking to my soul. And he just said, hey man, we got a lot to do as soon as you're ready to put that down. That right there just prompted me to be like, there's a huge plan for my life. Despite all the different ways I've tried to take myself out, God's not letting me go. He's got a plan for me. And since I quit drinking, I put that same energy that I used to put into drinking into just being successful, building businesses and growing, and it's been life-changing.
Jeff, what's up, dude?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you, man?
Good.
I'm so stoked to have you here. It's been a hot minute since we've been able to hang since our trip to Nashville, which was a blast to meet Nick Cavuto and see kind of your brand come alive out there.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But, dude, this podcast, this Storycast is all about the dreamers. I'm just fascinated by people who take these dreams that they dream all day, every day, and they're like, what if I freaking made that reality? Let's not let this be here. Let's bring it into the world. And you're not only one of those dreamers, but you're one of the few I've met where your dreams are like world scale. You don't dream small. You dream like big, big, big. It's like go big or go home with you, dude. And seriously, I've met very few people that are like, I want to change the freaking world, not just my own world. And it's really fascinating. So, dude, I'd love to just get a quick 30,000 foot picture into who you are and your story and how you got here.
Man, the 30,000 foot view is, I'm a mess, but still here. Really, my story goes back. It starts when I was 21. I became a police officer and became a dad actually before that at 17. So, I spent almost 8 years as a cop, and just the stuff I went through there really changed me a lot. A lot of good, but there was a lot of bad too, and kind of fell off the rails, let alcohol get the better of me for a large part of my adult life, through about 17 years actually. And had some stuff happen on duty, had an 18-month-old baby that weren't able to save and had to do mouth-to-mouth on. I tell people all the time, it's not if, it's when. So it's that one call that happened and just blew up my brain. And instead of getting help, I was just prideful about it and thought, I'll get through this. And me and Jameson and Bud Light will handle it. Yeah. We did for sure until we didn't. And I ended up losing my career, sitting in the same jail cell that I put people in. So you would think, if I told my whole story, there's a lot of rock bottoms, and you would think any of those would have snapped me out of things, but we all have our journey for a reason. So anyway, Even going back to that, honestly, losing my career saved my life. I was in such a bad place with depression, my anxiety, PTSD. I was planning my suicide on duty. I was going to run my patrol car into a wall coming down the highway. And I'm an accident reconstructionist, so I knew how fast I had to go, what angle to hit it at. There's a whole plan. So, and even before that, I had a night after me and Jameson hung out and sitting in my truck alone after getting into an argument, and had a gun to my head and started pulling the trigger, and something screamed no at me in my truck alone. So it kind of snapped me out of it. And talked to people about this before. Even all those things happening, planning my suicide, almost doing it, coming to, none of that prompted me like, hey, you need some help. It was just in my mind, I got this, and if nobody finds out, we're good. So anyway, it was rough to lose my career, but it ultimately saved my life. I do believe that. And so, since then, it's just been trying to find my way. I knew right away when I lost my career that I wanted to give back to the first responder community and let people know they're not alone and there's help if you want it. And unfortunately, that's taken me 14 years to make come to fruition. The biggest struggle with that was the alcoholism. I haven't drank since November 28th of 23, and wow, man, almost hit 300 days here. And so, it's been life-changing, man. That finally came to a head last year. I went to the hospital detoxing, and wasn't anything new. I'd been there 20 to 25 times in the last few years, detoxing to the ER, the urgent care. I just knew something wasn't right. Like my body was just not right. And they ended up admitting me. And the third night I was there, my heart stopped beating. Wow. I dozed off and I woke up to my charge nurse over me. And then the room was just flooded with nurses and doctors. And if you ever spent time in a hospital room, you hit the call button and it takes 15, 20 minutes for somebody to come. So for the whole room to be flooded and then the crash cart and people poking and prodding and all this stuff. And just my feet were shaking uncontrollably because they had for about 3 days straight just from detoxing. And I just remember looking at my feet and telling myself, like, I was built for greatness. I'm not going to go out like this. And, if I'm going to go out, I want to go out like a badass, not from some poison killing me. And I had an experience there, where God was in the room with me. I just remember him being in the corner, and it was the most gentle, loving, and caring voice that I've ever heard. And it was like talking to my soul. And he just said, hey man, we got a lot to do. As soon as you're ready to put that down, we've got big things. And that right there just prompted me to be like, there's a huge plan for my life. Despite all the different ways I've tried to take myself out, God's not letting me go. He's got a plan for me. And since I quit drinking, I put that same energy that I used to put into drinking into just being successful, building businesses and growing. And it's been life-changing. Wow. It was a few weeks ago, I was thinking about it, like, man, I went from literally my deathbed to making over 6 figures in less than half a year, just by getting up and doing the right thing and going to work, and rebuilding relationships and making things happen. So, wow. That's the overview, dude. It's a long overview, but
it's amazing. And you truly are like kind of a person that it's inspirational to meet people who overcome challenges, but you're a person that very few people, I guess, take their same energy from their past selves and just learn how to take that shadow self and just apply it to like good things. Like, it's like people like either push that so far back, they're like, that's not me anymore. But there's elements to those, like that version of ourselves. It's like, maybe that's not fully bad. I was just stewarding it poorly. And you're like an example of somebody who's like, okay, I was driven for the wrong things. I was ambitious for the wrong things. And like I'll tell you a story. I was driving and I saw, like, there's this notorious in northern Colorado, there's this notorious intersection where there's a bunch of people panhandling. And I saw this one lady and she was tenacious, dude. Like, she would go car to car to car. She would look in the window and wave and wave and wave. And people would, like, I watched people flip her off. I watched people like just like yell at her. Like, they were totally not into it. But this chick was tenacious. And I realized something. I was like, oh my gosh, if that woman was this tenacious for something good,
Yeah.
she would change the world.
Yep.
But she's choosing to panhandle and make people's lives miserable because she's like making them feel like they have to give to her, or like they're just pissed off already. Might as well make it worse for them.
Yeah.
And you're the type of person that said, okay, what if I take that same tenacity and apply it to changing the world?
Yeah.
Which is like so cool to me. So tell me, like, have you always been that tenacious, like since being a kid? Like,
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. Like, was that something your parents instilled into you?
Definitely not.
Okay.
No, I really think my tenacity comes from the point of trying to prove people wrong more.
Yeah.
So that was instilled in me as a kid. I was always really tiny. I mean, I graduated high school 130 pounds, and I wrestled and played football and ran track. And I was always a small dude, but I always did well, in sports. And once I finally got to play sports, when I was a little kid, my parents were like, "You're too little. You're going to get hurt." So I would play football, throwing the ball in the roof of my house and catching it. And
Yes.
I know this is childhood trauma stuff, but and my childhood wasn't bad by any means. I've seen a lot of bad circumstances with kids, but it definitely wasn't that. It wasn't the environment to build me into the person I am today.
Yeah.
And that's not how my parents operate at all.
Yeah.
My siblings are pretty driven as well, so maybe it skipped a generation. But I was telling somebody actually a month and a half ago, I was going through some old photo books and stuff, and I used to write. You remember old school? We used to have to cover our books in school, and had journals and this and that. I always used to write my name and then in parentheses put the best, or not parentheses, quotation marks.
Yeah.
It'd be Jeff Marr, the best.
Okay. Yeah.
And when I was a little kid, I would introduce myself to people like that, and people say, "Oh, you're modest too." And I thought that was they were building me up. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm modest." I had no idea what it meant, but looking back, they're like, "Hey, you're a cocky little kid."
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
And yeah, that's just what I was born with.
Yeah.
To me, there's a huge difference between arrogance and confidence. Arrogance to me is false, and you're just putting on a show because you don't want people to find out the real you.
Yeah.
When you're confident about you, who you are, what you're here for, I mean,
Yeah.
you can change the world.
Yeah.
I look at that in anything. I'm like, I'll build a space shuttle. If you give me the same resources, material, time,
Yeah.
I'll build it too. If a human can do it, so can I.
Yeah.
And I think most people are built that way. Mm-hmm. And the biggest problem is when we let outside when outside influences come in and try to change that and tell you that you can't and you're not and you're this and that. And really, to me, it's all those people's lack of self-confidence, because they don't want to see you do better than they're doing.
Right.
And yeah, that was a huge struggle actually growing up. And that's I feel like that was kind of put on my siblings and myself of, just do, we got taught what my parents knew.
Yeah.
And it wasn't ever this, "Hey, we want you to do better." I look at my 7 kids, and I'm like, I hope you do 1,000 times better than me.
Yeah.
And I want to set you guys up to do even better than me.
Yeah.
Because what better legacy do you have, than your kids outworking you?
Exactly.
But I want to work hard.
Yeah.
So they have to work even harder.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just always been my thing. I mean, like I said, I started playing sports in high school because we moved to a small school, and we played 8-man football. And then my parents' mentality was, well, the team's not that good, so you can play, which made no sense. But yeah, I mean, like I said, a little kid, I was all-state quarterback, and started varsity in every sport I played, and it's just that tenacity.
Yeah.
I used to think it was willpower, but as you alluded to, when I met with Nick, he said that was one of the things I'm just born with, and just this tenacity to make things happen. And really, when I think about my biggest struggle with alcohol, is it drowning out the noise, right? Like my brain doesn't shut off ever. Like even when I go to sleep, I'll have dreams about stuff. I'll wake up, write notes, and instead of looking at that as such a detriment anymore, I'm like, that's my superpower.
Yeah.
You put yourself in the right positions, in the right circumstances, and you have these ideas and visions that God's given us. Yeah. And then He puts people in your way or in your path that makes it happen.
Yeah.
I think so many people just aren't even aware that they've been given something.
Totally.
And then do anything with it.
Yeah.
But it's just that we go back to the alcohol thing. I used to drink a lot just to drown everything out. Between the PTSD, the nightmares I have, and things like that. Yeah. And really, when you're an alcoholic, you're going to use any excuse you want.
Sure.
I'm like, well, the sun came out today, so I guess I'm going to get drunk.
Yeah.
And it's not even so much channeling all the energy I was putting into that. It's just I have so much extra energy because I'm not doing that. I mean, I was a functioning alcoholic until I would go on a bender for 7-10 days, and that would be worthless. But
Sure.
other than that, I was still successful. I would still build things. I still had things going.
Yeah.
But there was just this, there was something holding me back. And I believe it was God holding me back because he doesn't want me to be in a position to influence and help a lot of people.
Right.
Just to fall off again.
Right.
And that's out of love for everybody. When I look at that, it's not because I didn't have the ability.
Right.
But it's like, you don't want to put a leader in a position to let people down.
Yeah.
And so I had to make that decision within myself. And really, in that hospital room, it was like, I have hated myself for so long and dealt with the depression and the negative voices. In that hospital room, I was just like, no, not anymore.
Yeah.
I was built for greatness. And there's nothing wrong with saying that.
Yeah.
It's better to, I would rather follow a leader that knows they're built for greatness than somebody that's like, whatever, we're here.
Right. Right. Dude, totally. It was your tenacity that kept you alive.
Yeah.
And like, it's your tenacity that's driving you forward. And like, I mean, when we were in Nashville, we went down, what is it, Boardwalk, I think it's what it's called, and Party Central in Nashville. I mean, like every bar was just juiced with people and like just lively and like drinking out the wazoo, and you drank water.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, that's tenacity defined. Like you were just in Vegas, did the same thing. It's like, I think there's more tenacious people out there than we realize, but they're so, I love how you talked about just like finding yourself and finding that confidence in yourself, because I think a lot of tenacious people have a lack of confidence, and that lack of confidence erodes them so much that they pour that tenacity into something that's so harmful for them.
Yeah.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's like, those were tenacious people, but they just had nothing to channel it into. And so you're channeling it into some incredible things right now. Do you want to talk about some of the stuff that you're working on, that you're kind of making happen in your life right now?
Yeah. I was just going to go back real quick.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome the way you put it, because I haven't really thought about it that way. But yeah, I can put myself back in the moment in the hospital room, and it was tenacity.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at my feet and I'm like, no, I'm not going out like this.
Right.
And I've seen plenty of people pass, and typically what happens is people give up. They think there's help and then they give up.
Yeah.
And that really wasn't even going through my mind at the time. But, I know a few calls in particular, as soon as we get there, paramedics get there, we start working on them. People, it's crazy, but like you could see it, they take a breath and like a sigh of relief, and then they pour out in 30 seconds. They're just done.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I like the way you put that. I'm going to use that because
dude,
it did. I'm literally sitting there like, oh no, I'm not letting a poison kill me.
Yeah.
If I'm going to go out, I want to be chasing down an active shooter or something.
Yeah.
Walmart and beat him with a clothes rack or something.
Dude, that would be
That's a badass way to go out.
Yeah, totally.
Not letting some poison just kill me.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I'm working on right now is speaking, doing public speaking. And again, in Nashville, Nick really pulled it out of just the way I was built, is to lead larger groups of people.
Yeah.
And share my message. And I won't say I have no shame. Shame is something I think is hard to overcome in a lot of areas.
Sure, yeah.
But I don't keep secrets. I let people know my story.
Yeah.
I can't say I'm proud of everything I've done, but everything I've done has put me in a position to where I can relate to a lot of people. And my biggest thing is letting people know they're not alone.
Yeah.
I mean, if I talk to 100 people and one person gets something out of it, then it's worth it to me. Just to know that they're not alone. Yeah, I think that comes from me being in a position of being alone so much, particularly with my depression. And I have suicidal ideation still. I mean, there's times I'll wake up just depressed, and I describe it to people. It's like an elephant sitting on my soul.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, go get in the sun. Like, cool. If that worked, I would have been in the sun.
Right. Yeah.
And when I used to drink, I would use that as an excuse as well. Well, whatever, I'm going to feel like crap anyway. And now it's just something that comes with me. It's like, this sucks, but you're coming with me. We have things to do.
Yeah.
And then after some time, it passes. But even in those moments, because people are like, oh, if you need to reach out, you need to talk or whatever. But the problem is people try to fix you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even when I coach people or people reach out, I do my best to not fix them. I did some training as a cop where they taught us how to deal with somebody going through a mental health crisis and suicidal. And a lot of that training was just like, you're their last effort, or their last, you're the end of their rope.
Yeah.
They're trying. So you need to make somebody know they're not alone and know that they're not wrong for feeling the way they are.
Right.
And that you're there.
Yeah.
And they're not doing anything to you. They're just reaching out human to human.
Yeah.
And so with that training, and I've talked plenty of people out of suicide as well with a different mentality of like, they just want to be heard. Totally. They want to be seen.
Yeah.
But that makes me a recluse when I'm feeling that way, because I don't want, I don't want anybody to tell me how to fix it or what to do or try this or try this.
Yeah.
And so I've said it plenty of times too on my social media. And I tell people, I'll just sit with you in the suck.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's all you need, just to know it's okay to feel that way.
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody goes through it to different levels,
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's environmentally induced, something happens. You go through a breakup or you lose your job or something like that. So yeah, you're depressed. It's a totally different thing though,
Right.
I can win the lottery today, wake up tomorrow morning and want to kill myself because
right.
that's just the way my body is, my brain is.
Yeah.
And I've prayed for the longest time. It's like the thorn in your side, from the Bible. And it's like, God's not taking it away. Yeah. So why not, again, use that as a way to help other people know some of us deal with this.
Right.
That doesn't mean it has to take over.
Yeah.
We don't have to lay in bed all day and pout and cry and,
Yeah.
I say pout, that's not very nice. But, sometimes it's all it is.
Yeah.
You do got to get up.
Yeah.
And we know inside of ourselves what to do most of the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of my driving force behind the public speaking and just wanting to let other people know they're not alone.
Totally.
And despite anything we go through, if we're still alive, there's a purpose.
Yeah.
God's got a purpose for us, and figure it out.
Totally, dude. I want to circle back around to this because, I feel like when people go through suicidal ideation and get that close to a successful suicide attempt, they have tips and tricks and tactics to help other people. I myself attempted suicide, and it wasn't until I saw a friend of mine complete the act of suicide that my life was changed and transformed. And you just never see life the same way. So I want to come back to this a little bit in a second, but I do want to talk a little bit on a lighter note, a hair, and then we can get right back into it. But I also want to just stress for our watchers, our listeners, if this is triggering for you, please, that might be an indication that you need to get help. Talk to Jeff, talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Don't do this alone. If these words are triggering you, please talk to somebody.
Yeah.
But we always have a drink for our guests on the show. And I believe what you choose in any way in life represents a little bit of who you are. And obviously I knew your story. I knew that you weren't drinking alcohol, but dude, tell me, why root beer out of all the drinks in the world?
I just love it. Specifically A&W.
Oh, sick.
That's
okay.
perfect, yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Is there some sort of like as a kid growing up, you loved root beer?
Dude, I wish I knew. It might be, as a kid, soda was a rarity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Growing up, we have pizza night once a month maybe, and that was Little Caesars, the cardboard pizza.
Yeah.
So going out, soda and that stuff wasn't a thing. And so maybe it's just because I got root beer sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's caffeine free.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that I drink 200 or 300 drinks a day to offset that, but
right.
Yeah, it's one of those things too. Sometimes people, I'll drink 4 or 5 root beers in a day. So that's a lot of sugar. I'm like, okay, compared to what I used to drink with alcohol, I'm way ahead of the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'll still make it to the gym. I'll be all right.
Oh, totally.
So yeah, I don't really know. Actually, I was thinking about that a while back. I had no idea.
It's funny how there's just things in our lives that my friend who's a counselor says it this way: you got to find things that bring out the little kid in you.
Yeah.
Because being an adult sucks ass. And it's so true. It's we do little things that we don't even realize, but I think in some ways it's almost like therapy to that inner child version of us that's just I just freaking want a pizza night and some root beer.
Yeah.
I've had a shitty week. Like, I just need a root beer today. Like, and kind of like going back into, I want to kind of bring this full circle a little bit and go back into like some tips and tricks for people who are struggling with suicide, suicidal ideation, just self-loathing or self-hatred. To me, this is one of those ways to contradict that. Like, it's just like, find something. It can be small, big, doesn't matter, but find something that gives you just joy. Like little pockets of joy in your life that you can just know that you can lean into. It obviously doesn't solve the problem, but like, what are some other tips, tricks, tactics that you've developed over the years that can help people like climb out of those dark places?
I mean, honestly, what works best for me is just accepting that it's just part of me.
Yeah.
Obviously there's the go for a walk in the sun and do this and that. And I do think there's a lot to be said for grounding, going out onto the earth and barefoot, walking in dirt. I do believe there's a lot. I just know when I'm at my very worst, like nothing's pulling me out except for time.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, the cop training I received, or even trying to train people these days for what to be prepared. You're so much better going into battle prepared. So it's all the work you do leading up to the episode that's going to get you through it. For me anyway, that's what's been the most successful.
Yeah.
I know it's coming. I can tell when it's coming because it's just like this feeling of doom out of nowhere. And where it used to really just throw me off the rails, because I would just throw my hands up and be like, this sucks. Like, why is this happening? And it's a victim mentality, which I hate. I hate that. But I was that way for a long time. And all alcohol did was help support that, It's a depressant itself. But then when you feel like shit and then you drink for several days and you make bad choices and your life turns into shit, you're like, well, it was meant to be, right?
Yeah.
But that's such a loser mentality. And I had that for a really long time. Having said, I was still successful though. So like, that's why the opposite side of that's been so great. But really, it's just about preparing yourself before. A lot of like daily affirmations, even when you're feeling great, remind yourself why you're feeling great.
Yeah.
And having that confidence to get through things and know like it's going to pass.
Yeah.
One of the things I love to use is just keep breathing.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's like, even for me, sometimes that's all it is. It's just a matter of second by second, just keep breathing.
Yeah.
I struggled also with cutting. I would cut myself a lot because then I would feel pain, and it wasn't going through a tire act, and I would do it places nobody was going to really see, but it was just, I would just be freaking out so much on the inside, and that would give me a physical release. And so, I mean, anybody that's struggling with it, and like you said, if you're struggling, please reach out. I say all the time, if you think there's a problem, there's a problem to varying degrees.
Yeah.
But do something. Value yourself enough to do something.
Yeah.
And even the 988 line that they started for crisis intervention, and I can't say I've ever used it, but again, I'm very leery to call somebody and have them say something that's not going to line up. You're not be accurate, but by all means, reach out, please. Call 911. That's what everybody's there for.
Yeah.
And for sure, you can reach out to me or somebody. But that's more what I focus on more now with coaching is just being ready. So when the battle comes, you know how to get through it.
Yeah. That's good, man. Like, I love how you use the word battle, because it's like, you wouldn't go into a battle without armor.
Right.
And where is an armor forged? Well, it's in the crucible. It's in the fires of like insane amounts of heat and pressure and being hammered, and almost like sometimes people see these dark places, these dark pits, as something like, I'm not going to touch it. Like, I'm not going to go there. There's some people that pretend they don't exist, and I think that's a little ignorant.
Yeah.
But like, I can look back at every dark pit that I climbed and clawed my way out of in my life, and I can literally see myself becoming another person.
Yeah.
And there's actually like a theory in counseling about this where they call it the U of death. And it's like this slippery slope that counselors see with their people, their clients, where they start explaining their story. Let's just say someone's dad beat them or something. They're like, yeah, my dad beat me when I was a kid, and he would do it daily, and this is what he would do. And then all of a sudden they see them be like, but my dad was abused as he was a kid, and his grandfather abused his dad. And they start to like justify climbing out of that dark place.
Yeah.
But most counselors realize and recognize that true healing and transformation comes when that person comes into that valley where they're like, I'm a wounded kid. My dad beat me and I didn't have a good father growing up.
Yeah.
And they sit there in the ashes and they sit and weep in it. And then eventually they realize, okay, but that's not my whole story.
Right.
I need to change the narrative. I need to be a better father for my children. I need to do better for the future generations. They climb their way out of it, but they first had to have that place of just self-death, really.
Yeah.
So tell me, like, what values have you seen in those dark places that you've come to almost maybe embrace at times instead of just run away from? Because it seems like you have a really good connection to that rhythm of like falling into that pit, becoming stronger, climbing your way out of it. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, even as you're saying that, it's like you die to your old self. But when you're in that pit, and that's the suck that I would talk about, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'll sit with you in the suck.
Yeah.
Like, what prompts you to start getting back out? And my number one value that I finally realized was me.
Yeah.
I mean, I like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't like me for a long time.
Yeah.
And when I had that mentality, I would remind myself over and over of all the failures.
Yeah.
I've done CPR 14 times, but I saved 2 people's lives.
Wow.
Like, most of the time when you're doing CPR, it's not. Like, that's not a good sign. Or
Yeah.
people aren't going to make it.
Yeah.
And a couple of people were so far gone anyway, like nothing was bringing them back. But still, when I didn't like myself, it was the 12 deaths that kept recurring through my brain, the 12 losses.
Wow.
Not the 2 victories. And so changing my perspective to be like, no, I've done a lot of cool things in my life.
Yeah.
We all mess up stuff, and I'm not trying to diminish any pain I've caused or bad choices I've made. But the fact is, like, I still want to do better.
Yeah.
And I want to push other people to do better.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty cool value. Like, not a lot of people are like that.
No.
We all can sit here and name a handful of people that are just a perpetual victim. Life sucks. Everything's bad.
Yep.
I try to eliminate those people from my life anymore.
Yeah.
But we all know them.
Yeah.
If the panhandler on the street, like, I can't do any better. There's just nothing.
Yep.
Or you could literally give that person $100,000 check and they'll be panhandling in a week because they don't have the mindset to do better with it.
Yeah.
They've just accepted that victim mentality.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the values, I guess, be just, value myself and that tenacity.
Yeah.
And really, when I fall into the pits of depression now, I know it's just a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
And the fewer things I do to keep myself there, if that makes sense, like the less time it takes to get out of it.
Yeah.
If I want to sit there and, like I said, haven't drank in almost a year, but if I want to sit there and drink, I'm going to stay there longer.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to make bad choices, it affects everything. And then it affects family, relationships, jobs, like all this stuff. Well, now you just went from something that's just naturally occurring inside your head because of chemical imbalance. So now you've created all these environmental shitstorm, basically.
Yeah.
And life's going to suck for a little while.
Yeah.
Now you got to get out of it.
Yeah.
I do think what's interesting, though, is I reflect on a lot of things with my life. So became a cop at 21. I was a dispatcher before that for a couple of years. I just always knew that's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
I've always been kind of a leader. I've always been a leader.
Yeah.
Like captain of teams, this and that. But I'm used to chaos, and that's where I thrive. I thrive in chaos. So stuff goes down, like I want to be in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be the calm in the storm. That doesn't translate very well sometimes in my life to when things are calm. But really, as I reflect on things, like I would create so much chaos in my life because now I have a problem to solve and I have something to do.
Yeah.
So like everything's going great and I'm blow it all up and I got to rebuild it. And I did every single time.
Yeah.
And so eventually it's like, once you realize you don't have to create that chaos to stay fulfilled by building, again, I'm not sure if that makes sense. It makes sense in my head, but
Yeah, no, it does make sense.
that's like the path I'm on.
Yeah.
Like there haven't been pitfalls. There haven't been there's been some plateaus here and there, but that to me is a lot different than going up and then you fall down. Then you go back up a little bit higher,
Yeah.
where it's just trending upward.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing I can attribute to that is not drinking, having that value, that the value in myself that I deserve more than what I've been letting myself have.
Yeah.
And that as a result of that, I get to bless a lot of people around me.
That's amazing. I love that, man. Like, it's that motivation, like that thing that just gets you up in the morning and like I don't know, like for me, when I was really struggling with suicide, and it, like I said, it wasn't until I saw a friend complete it and just devastated his family. I mean, like wrecked them.
Yeah.
Like they were never the same. And I started realizing how selfish I was for even thinking of doing that to my family, my friends, people that cared about me.
Yeah.
Heck, even coworkers. Like when somebody completes the act of suicide, you don't just move on from that, right? Like, so maybe like, I don't know, if somebody's struggling with that and going through that, at the end of the day, it's like maybe something that might help them is just realizing, hey, get over yourself a little bit. Like there are people in this world that do love you. You may not feel it, but it's true. And if you experience the loss of someone to suicide, I mean, like, it's traumatic, man. It's like, I mean, it changed my life. Like, I'll still like get thoughts every now and then, but I immediately kill it as fast as I can, because I'm like, my wife, my son,
Right.
my friends, my family, my future, they all need me.
Yeah.
And like, you've clearly found that. But one of the things we also do on the show is we talk to people about their favorite book, but instead of talking about your favorite book, I want to talk about your book. A book that you wrote, it was pretty recent, right? Like a few years ago?
A couple of years ago.
Yeah. So
Finished it.
And it was based off your brother's story.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about that book and like what prompted you to write that, and you just sold your last copy of it, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So now you got your bestseller all of a sudden. Like,
Yeah, I got to rework the metrics to get on that list.
Yeah.
I know how now.
yeah, totally. But dude, yeah, tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah. So my little brother was involved in a really bad accident 3.5 years ago now. A head-on collision on a 2-lane highway up in rural Wyoming, middle of nowhere. And he was moving to a small town. So he had a Cummins 2500 with a huge bumper on the front of it.
Yeah.
Obnoxiously big, which ultimately probably helped save his life.
Yeah.
Pulling a trailer, and his wife was right behind him following, and a truck was just driving crazy and ended up running into him head on.
Wow.
And the driver of that truck died right away. And my brother was trapped inside the truck for over an hour till they were able to get to him and extricate him. And
Wow.
had to reinflate his lung on the side of the road and in a coma for a while. And it was a crazy experience because I've dealt with a lot of things as a cop.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I was an accident reconstructionist. So when there was gnarly accidents, like I'm there and literally put it all back together and tell how fast people were going, who was at fault. I mean, it's like, they don't have any shows about it, but it's like the forensic shows.
Yeah.
They find the killer based on this and that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with accidents. I mean, everything leaves evidence and clues. So
Yeah.
And it was crazy because I was at the gym, crazy enough. When I got the call from my brother-in-law, he said, "Hey, did you hear about Mike?" I'm like, "No, what's up?" It's like, "He's in a bad accident, not good, not sure."
Wow.
And my little brother and I have always been close, and there was just something in my soul, and I was like, Mike's not okay. He's not alive right now. And really, if you put everything together, I mean, he wasn't alive for a while. Medicine is what brought him back, or died or whatever, which I'll get into that in a minute. But I got there, and then we went and got stuff out of his truck from the impound a couple days later, and this is the most gruesome, horrific, gnarly damage I've ever seen to a vehicle.
Gee.
And to think that he survived that was just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, just the whole process of being next to somebody in a coma and just hoping they wake up and not know what to do. And, they're on all this life support machines and all this stuff, and you're just there. But somebody had started a Facebook group, and somebody did a GoFundMe and raised, people were just jumping on because it was a crazy story.
Yeah.
And so in that group, I started just sharing just really like what was going on and how raw the emotions were. And people started commenting back, like, really enjoy the way you write. You really set the scene. And if you ever wrote a book, I would buy it. So I'm like, all right, I'll write a book.
Yeah.
I actually sold like 50 copies before I even finished the book because
Wow.
It's just the marketing, right? I'm like, book's ready. So people started buying it. I was like, all right, now I need to finish it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's about what happened and just processing trauma from a really close proximity.
Yeah.
And just really going through the raw emotions,
Yeah.
As I kind of alluded to, but some people are alive but not living.
Right.
That's my brother's situation. He's still, he has a traumatic brain injury. He's in a wheelchair.
Wow.
You can have conversations with him, but he's not living. He's a blue collar worker. He worked in the oil field. And so now, anytime I see him or talk to him, like, what are you doing, man? He's like, just sitting around. And like, so
Yeah.
it sucks because he knows that he can't do anything.
Right.
And like, I struggle with that because I'm like, that's not living.
Yeah.
And, my parents are his caretakers now and they're not living.
Wow.
I mean, they're taking care of him. It's your kid. You're going to do that.
Yeah, totally.
But just seeing the way that it affects everything. And so in that whole thing too, I'm just looking at the situation like, well, what good is coming out of this? What is the message?
Yeah.
And so the book was kind of a way to try to help other families going through that stuff to realize, again, you're not alone.
Yeah.
When you're sitting there thinking, I want my loved one to be alive, but it's better for everybody if they're not. That's a natural thought.
Right.
And I think with even that, the suicide stuff, all of it, there's so much, I think we're taught, I don't know where, but we're taught to not think like that or it's wrong.
Sure.
We're humans,
Yeah.
If Elon Musk never thought of the Tesla, we wouldn't have it, right?
Right.
It's thoughts.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with the thoughts. It's the actions.
Right. Yeah.
It's that thought of they're better off dead than smothering them with a pillow. That's the part that's wrong. It's
Yeah, totally.
But just being able to be human, I think, is what helps me connect with a lot of people and understand, and you had said something about, when you're suicidal and how many people it affects. And I know we're going off of that to the book, but I just wanted to, when you're talking about that, what strikes me, first of all, is nobody cares, right? Like that's the fact. We all care about ourselves. We're all selfish creatures. So when you allow yourself, and I say that to say when you get into these dark places and you're like, nobody cares about me and blah, 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 and this and that. Well, you're right to a point.
To a degree, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's devastating across the board when somebody commits suicide. I think more than anything, it's devastating for survivors because they don't have answers.
Right.
Forget the answers.
Right.
So again, that grief process is selfish, right? Because you're like, well, why? Why would they do this to me?
Right.
Because now I'm left picking up those pieces.
Yeah.
But again, that's a selfish thing. Human nature.
Sure.
So I say that in a harsh way to be like, I have to remind myself of that too sometimes. Like nobody cares, but they have their own stuff to worry about. Like I got to get myself through these hard times. I'm capable. I'm built for this. I know what to do.
Yeah.
This is what God's handed me to deal with. It's not everybody else's problem.
Yeah.
And really, understanding that and putting time in gets you through it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's hard sometimes to be, one of the things that I did receive in training was don't bring up a lot of stuff like, what about your family?
Yeah.
Or what about your kids? Somebody who's truly suicidal has a plan, has all these things, and they're ready.
Yep.
One of my favorite rappers, NF, he says it best in one of his songs. He says, I don't want to die, I just want to be here. And like really when you're at that low, it's not even a matter of I want to be dead. Right. I just don't want to feel this way anymore.
Yeah.
My soul is just exhausted.
Yeah.
And you're that far gone, you're not thinking about everybody else.
Right.
Maybe you have thought about them, but reminding somebody of everybody else might be the thing that pushes them over the edge.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, you're right. I am just a failure, So, like I said, it's a harsh way, I think, of thinking about it.
No,
if you can wrap your mind around the fact that people don't care about everything you're going through because they're going through stuff.
Yeah.
Like, do you care when you're in that moment? Are you caring about what they're going through? No.
Yeah.
But like, that's why we all get along. You have community because you have to remember
exactly.
In the good times, it's happy and there's joy,
Yeah.
We all have struggles.
Right.
We all have to process it alone to a degree.
Right. No, you're totally right, man. And like, we live in a culture where there's so many handouts.
Yeah.
So many handouts. And I'm on this like, I don't know, endless pursuit to like, I don't know, be self-resilient. Like not even reliant on my like wife or my family. It's like, how many years did I just rely on them for X, Y, Z? And like, it's not a bad thing to rely on people like, your spouse. That's a good thing. But to a degree, it's like, no one's going to come to save you.
Right.
What are you going to do to save yourself?
Yeah.
And people don't live like that anymore. We used to live like that. We used to live like, no one's going to come hunt for me, so I'm going to go hunt. I'm going to go kill the deer.
Right.
And I'm going to go provide for myself and my family.
Yeah.
We don't have that. We can go to the grocery store. Like, we've literally been conditioned to
Rely
on others. Yeah. And so I think you're totally right, man. I don't think that's harsh to say. I think it's worth saying, because at the end of the day, the reason, like you said, the reason why someone's most likely suicidal is they don't have any confidence. They don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And that's why they don't believe that they provide value. Most people, like you said, when they're in a dark place, they're going to say, it's better for me to be gone for the people who love me.
Yeah. And you feel like a burden.
Yeah.
And you're this and that. And people can tell you all they want, you're not.
Yeah.
But honestly, this is me just being raw about stuff, right? Like, to an extent, you are.
Right.
And I was. Yeah. When I was at my worst, I was a burden.
Yeah.
I was an alcoholic. I wasn't being productive. I was bringing people down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was suicidal and depressed and this and that. But yeah, I was a burden.
Right.
And if I would have talked to me the right way, I'd be like, you are, get up.
Yeah.
Like, quit being a victim, get up.
Yep.
Like, it sucks. It sucks worse when you're acting like this.
Do something.
So yeah, you are a burden. And the harsh reality, and I've told plenty of people this too, like, it's always an option. If that's what you want to do, we're given free will.
Yeah.
If you haven't yet, there's a reason. So let's tap into that.
Yeah.
And figure out why. I hope you don't. But if you do, I mean, I 100% understand. I understand people who take their own lives. Mm-hmm. It's sad. It sucks. But I do understand that. Just wanting that release of being like, I don't want this anymore.
Yep.
And I've almost been there. It is giving up.
Yeah.
But if that's how you want to be remembered, that's your choice.
Yeah.
But if you want to be remembered as a badass who pushed through it, lived life and did good things despite it, then there you go. Yeah. I mean, I heard an author, John Maxwell. He's an author, but he's also a speaker. Yeah. But he said one time, what's your life sentence? So at the end of your life, how can your life be summed up in one sentence? Wow. Like, what's your eulogy going to say? What's on your tombstone? Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to say was, loser gave up. Mm-hmm. And I did for a long time. A long time. Right. That's probably the biggest fire inside of me now, is realizing, like, God didn't let me go. Yeah. There's a reason I'm here. Yeah. And so why play small with that, Yeah. People don't change the world who think small. Totally. And yeah, there's so much opportunity to do great things. Yeah. But like, that's not to say I don't still struggle with things, Sure. You talked about Nashville. The next night after you guys left, and I went out, ate dinner, blah, 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 and I'm walking around like, this is cool. And that's really there's been 2 or 3 times in my sobriety that I've thought about drinking. Yeah. And that was one of the times. And I was like, nobody's going to know. Like, who cares? Like, I can have a couple. Right. And I stopped it and said, I'm going back to the hotel. Yeah. Because I know one turns into me in the hospital. And so, not right away, but eventually that's what it's going to lead to. Yeah. The only other time is like football comes around, like, yeah, it'd be sweet to sit on a patio and drink some beer. Yeah, totally. I'm not that guy. I can't, right? Right. So, right. Just accepting that, but yeah, dude. I think, like, I don't know. You're a spiritual guy, and so I can go to those places with you. Some people I got, you never know what people believe, but I mean, in the Bible, there's one of the authors of the books of the Bible, Paul. Literally in the Bible, there's verbiage of him saying, like, I don't freaking want to do this anymore. Yeah. I don't want to live. Like he believed in something bigger, like heaven and a future for him in another life. And he's like, why? I don't want to do this anymore. Like, literal, almost like suicidal ideation on the pages of the Bible. Yeah. People think you don't find that stuff in the Bible. You do. And you find weirder stuff too. Yeah. But like, this dude was like, but I'm going to keep going until it's my time to be done. Because for some reason I'm here, and I'm going to freaking beat my hands to my chest until I figure out what that thing is. And like you said, I'm going to make my life worth something. Yeah. And it's like, at the end of the day, that's the biggest lie that people seem to believe. I believed it, you believed it, and we have to wrestle with it. But people just seem to believe I have no value. Yeah. I have no purpose. I have no meaning being here. I'm like, you have breath in your lungs. Right. How is that not like a miracle? Like, like I don't know. You have a lot of kids. Like I have my son. Like, watching the birthing process
And seeing my friends, like my wife and I have had a bunch of miscarriages, and seeing my friends have miscarriages, and like how one thing can go wrong, and that fertilized egg could totally fail.
Yeah.
There's so much that could go wrong, but when it happens perfectly and that baby is born, there's purpose.
Yeah.
There's meaning. There's a life to be lived. And it's just like, man, if people could figure that out, like, so tell me a little bit about how you help people find that for themselves, and like your coaching and your speaking. Like, how do you help people find this mysterious thing called their purpose, or just their mission in life?
Yeah, there's better coaches for kind of finding purpose.
Sure.
I don't really get into a whole lot of purpose necessarily, but it's just that reinstilling confidence. And to me, where all of that starts is gratitude.
Yeah.
Like daily gratitude. And that's what helps you to be like, hey, I'm here. I am breathing. I do have a purpose. There is something.
Yeah.
Just reminding yourself of good things. And it is so easy this day and age to be like, this sucks, Yeah. I mean, I'm horrible in traffic. I'm like, why is everybody in my way?
Yeah.
But then if you break it down, I'm like, okay, I have a vehicle.
Yeah.
I have money for fuel. I have a place to go.
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying to get there. Like I'm alive to be able to be late to wherever I'm going.
Yeah.
I hate being late, but
Yeah.
it's really like changing your perspective and your mindset on things.
Right.
Because it is so easy to be negative.
Right.
And that's how I grew up. I mean, I was taught negative.
Yeah.
And even as a cop, you see the worst. Like people don't call the police because they're having a great day.
Right.
And so you see the worst. And even going back to what you were talking about, relying on other people, it can go away. I always use the cliche of, what if I get hit by a bus? I have dark humor. So, but you never know.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally, one of my very first death call, unfortunately, was an older lady who got hit by a bus. That was a bad deal. But
Yeah.
that's not why I use the reference, but
Right.
her life changed in an instant.
Yeah.
Her friend's life who was there changed. My life changed. I was 21 years old, 3 months into being a cop, and I'm underneath the bus holding her hand, watching her soul leave her body, like literally watched her die.
Wow.
And she's just staring at me like, I've described it before, like her soul screaming at me to help. I'm like, there's a bus on top of you. There's not a lot I can do.
Right.
But obviously that's one of the things that sticks with me, but like,
Yeah.
your life can change. People's lives can go away, So yeah, relying on somebody else for your happiness, for your fulfillment, for all of that. If that goes away, then you're left with nothing. And a lot of that is confidence and that self-resilience. And it's not that you don't want a partner or you want people around you. I think we're built for community.
Yeah.
That can change in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, if everything goes away and that's everything that you were living for, then what are you left with?
Yeah. Dude,
And I love my kids for sure.
Yeah.
I would lay my life on the line for them, but I don't live for them.
Right.
And I never have.
Right.
And to a degree, it was incredibly selfish and I should have done a whole lot more. Right. I can't go back and fix those things. I can move forward, do better, teach them better.
Yeah.
But I try to caution parents too sometimes. Like, I would live for my kids. Like, what happens when your kid grows up and does their own thing?
Yeah.
Like God made your kids for his purpose.
Yeah.
They're going to do their own thing.
Right.
And that's what I always told my kids too, like I want to raise you to be good adults.
Totally.
Because, you have 18 years of being a kid and then 70 years of being an adult.
Yeah.
Like, let's prepare you for what the 70 looks like instead of the 18.
Yeah.
You got to be self-reliant. You have to figure stuff out.
Right.
I mean, I'm more of an old school kind of dad, I guess, when my kids were younger, but they were doing their own laundry at 6 years old. Like,
Yeah.
they were helping make dinner. They were doing stuff.
Yeah.
And I have 7 of them, so there's plenty to help each other out.
Yeah.
A little army, but even if they might not even realize it now, but I was doing those things, not because I'm a lazy dad and don't want to.
Right.
And the older I get, the more vulnerable I get with emotions, the more I'm like, dang, I really wish I would have taken advantage of some of those opportunities to connect or just provide or whatever.
Yeah.
But I did provide in a way of teaching them resilience and how to do things and how to not rely on other people. And maybe that comes from the fact that I, have my own abandonment stuff I deal with. But yeah, I mean, just like you're saying though, you don't want to have to rely on somebody else for your happiness.
Yeah.
And I do think that gets you through a lot of things like we're talking about when you are suicidal and you are just drained and depressed. And sometimes it's okay. And you hit on, you have the suicidal thoughts here and there and you just nip them in the bud. Like, I'm with you. I have like a mental shelf, right? So I'll put it in a box. I'll look at it, right? Check it out, put it in a box, and I'll store it. Yeah, I could always go back to it.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
But to me, that helps me process it better than just ignoring it.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
And again, like there's nothing wrong with it. I could be driving down the road and like, man, I can just run my truck off the road right now and it'll all be done. And I'm like, okay, why am I thinking that?
Yeah.
Like I like psychoanalyze myself. Like, let's dive into that for a second.
Right.
Like, why are we going there?
Right.
And just understand, sometimes there's not a reason.
Right.
Just be like, okay, cool. That's a random thought. Let's go ahead and store that one.
Yeah.
So it was an option, but
Yeah.
it's a different mentality than when I used to let it just overrun my brain and just be like, gosh, you're such a loser. Like, why are you thinking like this? You have all these things. And it's almost like that rhetoric that we've already heard. Like, why are you that way when you have all these good things? I mean, my parents even would tell me they're not alcoholics. They don't understand it. I do believe everybody struggles with an addiction to a degree of different things, right? But it was always like, why are you drinking? Why don't you just put it down? You have all these things and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, if I knew that answer, I wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
Right. But yeah, so I guess for me, it helps to just process, understand, and then put it in its place.
That's really good. I mean, you got to deal with it the ways that you deal with it. Like, it's like everybody's different. And there's that. I think that's why tips, tricks, and tactics, it's like you can give them, but at the end of the day, you got to figure out you.
Yeah.
You got to figure out your own psychology.
Yeah. It's just like lifting weights, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Somebody's like, I want to get jacked. Like, cool. You need to go to the gym for 15 years. Like,
Yeah.
You can get there, but you have to do the work, or if you want to lose weight or whatever it is. I just use the gym because I love the gym, but I just hear it from so many people, or people like, I don't want to work out because I don't want to get all muscly. Like, okay. Like, that's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
Or people like, I don't have the time. We make time for what we want to do, So it's once you decide, and for me, again, my decision was, I don't want to feel like this ever again.
Yeah.
And again, I was in the hospital, and that's not even my lowest, man. Like, we had more time. I could tell you better stories of rock bottom. That was just when it finally clicked to me.
Yeah.
It's like, I never want to feel this way again.
Yeah.
How I can guarantee I will never feel that specific way again is if I never drink again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, if you wanted to lose 15 pounds, okay, there's Success Leaves Clues. Like, there's plenty of things out there.
Yep.
You can Google it for free and figure out what you need to do to lose 15 pounds.
Yep.
But now it's on you to do it.
Yep.
Like, knowledge without action is nothing.
Yeah. The older I get and the more I do and the more I achieve and the more I accomplish, I suppose, like I don't give myself excuses, because at the end of the day, I'm like, this is on me.
Yeah.
This isn't on anybody else. Like, sometimes we look at the world and we're like, it's just unfair. And that's such BS, man. It's just like, no, it's totally fair. Everything's out there for you to grab and to take. Are you doing that? Are you working harder than your competitors? Are you dreaming bigger than other people? Are you staying up late working when everybody else is sleeping? Are you working holidays when other people are like slamming a burger? Like what are you doing to push yourself, set yourself apart? And it's like, every time I get down in the dumps and like, it's not going the way I want it. I'm not where I want to be. I should just give up. I take a look in the mirror and I look at myself and I say, like, do I really feel like I'm giving it everything?
Yeah.
And the answer is always no. There's more I can give.
Yeah.
There's more I can give. And there's something really cool about that, because it's progressional. Where I was 10 years ago is totally different from where I am now. But it was just that compounded effect of saying, I can give more. Right. I can do more. I can do more. We just, the guy that we interviewed on our first Storycast, Matt Scaletti, he just accomplished an ultra triathlon.
Nice.
Dude, he's 40 years old. I'm like, I can't even dream. I'm like 8 years younger than the dude. I can't even dream about, I don't even freaking know how much, like, it's like crazy amounts of like swimming, biking, and running. And it's like unbelievable. And he just did it. And it's taken him for, like you said, 10, 15, 20 years, but he did it. But like like we don't give ourselves permission to celebrate, I think, along the way.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about, like, you're an ambitious, driven dude. talk to me a little bit about how you celebrate things like you're almost at like a full year of sobriety. How do you celebrate? How are you going to celebrate some like the tenacious efforts of your consistent character?
I wish I had an answer. I don't. I need to. That is part of self-care for sure.
Totally.
I'm bad about. Sometimes I think you can be too humble.
Sure. Yeah.
But you talk to certain people in my life, they would tell you that's not me anyway. But I don't give myself a lot of credit for how far I've come. And I do think that's an important part of things. I'm
Totally.
it's crazy you even ask that, because just yesterday I started doing some training and coaching about more of that.
Yeah.
Like really just loving yourself and why.
Yeah.
And I could tell people all the time what to do, but till I do it, it's not really going to mean much. So yeah, I'd have to get back to you on that one, but
That's okay. I think like ambitious people, I actually saw, I think it was a video, or I can't remember, but they said that like ambitious people are oftentimes the most critical and they refuse to celebrate.
Yeah.
Because there's always like another win. There's always something on the horizon. Like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, sure, we got here, but that.
Yeah, I think it's huge though, to celebrate your victories.
Yeah.
And I mean, I definitely will start doing that more.
Yeah.
Because, I was listening to a speaker yesterday, and she was talking about, she spoke on stage, and then she got done, and somebody pulled her aside and was like, I just think I could have done better on stage, whatever. She's like, why? Like, why wasn't that the greatest, speech you've ever given or whatever?
Yeah.
It's like, even if it was bad, like you did it.
Yeah.
I mean, give yourself some credit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd have to get back to you on a new podcast about that. It's funny though, because you bring up effort, right?
Mm.
So I have a drill that I have people do.
Yeah.
So if you want to do it real quick, okay?
Okay.
You have to give me all of your effort.
Okay.
All right? Simple. And if you're driving listening to this, don't do it right now. But anybody can do it, okay? So I need you to raise your hand as high as you can.
Both of them?
Yep. One. I go a quarter inch higher. See? Everybody will do it, right?
Yeah, totally.
So the instructions were, only do it if you're going to give me everything you got.
Yeah.
And that's what, you first raise your hand. You have a little bit more.
Yeah.
Everybody has a little bit more in the tank.
Yeah.
And so I use that as a teaching principle in a way to be like, just be real, be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to say I gave it my all. You can say I gave it enough,
Yeah, dude.
which again is almost like celebrating the victories, but it's also setting yourself up just to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And be like, I gave it enough.
Yeah.
Even if you played a football game and you won by a point, but dang, I left a lot on the field. I could have done this and that. Well, you won.
Yeah.
You gave it enough.
Celebrate
Did enough
it.
to win.
Yeah.
So instead of focusing, and again, like that's focusing on the negative, what more could I have done? Instead of focusing on did enough.
Yeah.
Next time I can do better.
Yeah.
And that is different levels for everybody,
Totally. Well, dude, I love getting to talk with you because like you seem to be on this like journey of like perfecting mind, body, and spirit, and just endlessly beating yourself into submission. And I love people like you, man. I really do. But like, I got a couple more questions for you, and then we'll call it. First off, what's the dream right now? Like, what's the big mountaintop that you're like, man, I want to freaking get here. I'm aiming for it. I'm putting all my resource towards that. What's the dream?
My dream is to help people and have a yacht.
I love it. Yeah.
So, probably be more specific. I want to reach 1 million people in the next year.
Cool.
Whatever that looks like.
Yeah, dude. I love that.
So if it's through social media, if it's through public speaking, whatever it is. And again, at that 1%, ratio, if 10,000 people get something out of what I said and that changes their life and their family's life and that lineage and all that, then I did my job.
Worth it. Yeah, man. That's amazing.
But at the same time, I want to buy a yacht. So yeah. I don't
want 10 million.
I'm not trying to work for free.
Yeah.
Which again is something I think people that want to help, sometimes you get in this mentality like you got to do it for free.
Right.
Some of the worst people I've ever worked with, I gave them free advice.
Yeah.
Because they don't value it.
Right.
At the same time, somebody's like, you want to charge how much? Like, okay, we're not ready.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I paid a lot of money in the last year. I've made a lot of money, and I paid a lot of money towards growth and development.
Yeah.
Getting in the right rooms and stuff like that. Like, nothing's handed to you.
Yeah.
And if you don't value something, you're not actually going to put in all your effort and work towards it.
Totally.
Because you can get it for free.
Yeah.
I mean, newsflash, like you can get anything for free.
Yeah.
We have an internet that's vast, you know, and with
Yeah.
AI, it scares the shit out of me. So it's crazy. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
dude.
I want to influence, help people, but I want to live a good life. And
Yeah.
you can help a lot more people when you have a lot of money.
Dude. That's for sure. That's for sure. People with money take notes.
Yeah.
Well, dude, yeah, I think it's doable. I know you and your tenacity. I think reaching 1 million people is only the beginning of your journey. My last question for you, and I ask everybody this, it's my favorite question to ask, but if you were to snap your fingers and something magical were to happen overnight in the world, in your life, just anything, what would happen?
I'll just wake up as me tomorrow.
I love it.
I mean, I wouldn't be me without everything I've gone through. And I can't be the better future version of me without going through what I'm going through right now. So yeah, if it was that easy, I wouldn't value it and it wouldn't be lasting.
Dude, I love that answer. You're the only person that's ever answered that question. Hundreds of people that I've asked that question. You're the only one that said nothing would change.
Yeah.
Keep moving.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think we're all right where we're supposed to be.
Yeah. I love that, dude. Well, Jeff, how can people get connected with you? Give yourself some shout outs here. How can people support you?
Yeah, my Instagram handle is the Bearded Bodybuilder.
Apropos.
Yeah. I thought about changing that to rebrand, and I was like, I'll never get that back if I lose it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But yeah, on Facebook, my last name's Marr, Marr. And then my website is me.org.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's my life coaching company is called Me Versus Me. And that goes back to, I mean, the name says it all, but that's what I came up with years ago. It's just like, I got to win this battle against myself.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming to save me.
Yeah, dude. And you sell supplements on that site too? Like
the supplements are Win Every Day.
Win Every Day.
.co.
Cool.
So yeah, it's just that mentality, right? Like,
yeah,
you're going to win every day. And it goes back to what you were saying too, just a little bit better. Like if you get 1% better every day, after 100 days, you're a new person.
Yeah.
So you don't need to give 5, 10%. Do 1%.
Yeah.
But you do it consistently. And that's a great discussion though, man. Like we overestimate how much we can get done in a week and underestimate how much we can get done in a year.
Totally.
You just keep pushing forward and doing the right thing. And yeah, man, the results happen.
Yeah, dude. Well, I believe big things for you, my friend. And I'm excited to see where you go in your journey and how many people you affect along the way. And I'd love to get you on another one of these in the future. So
yeah, for sure.
When you're on the yacht, maybe we'll do the next one on the yacht.
It'll be on my yacht.
Yeah.
The ocean terrifies me, honestly. So the yacht might never leave the dock.
It's okay.
But I'm gonna have the yacht. Yeah.
It'll be a land yacht, like cruising down the highway.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, cool. Thank you, my friend. This was awesome.
Thank you.